The first gym in Pokemon is your first real test to see if you got what it takes to become the champion. The road to obtaining that title is always a long one, so how long does it actually take to reach and defeat the first gym in every mainline Pokemon game? It's a question I just had to know the answer to for no reason at all. And the answers vary a lot. Some games are super quick and others, well, let's just say they make me want to rip my hair off. So of course, first off is the OG, the bread and butter, the one that started it all, Pokemon Red and Blue. Now for some of these runs, I will be using some speedrun methods, but not in any serious way. While I will be trying to beat the first gym as fast as I can, I am not a speedrunner, and most of these runs can obviously be faster by a couple of minutes due to optimal Pokemon or just straight up RNG. Red and Blue starts off like any Pokemon game should. We talk to the professor, choose our name, choose our gender, and get our starter. In this game, we fight Blue immediately, defeat him, and make our way to grab Oak, his Parcel, as his personal errand boy. No, seriously, I said I'd help him with his research, and ever since then, I'm stuck being every professor's errand boy for life. Time does get a little slowed depending on whether or not you run into any Pokemon in the grass, and this will go for any game, aside from Gen 8 and Gen 9. But ultimately, we are off to training Squirtle by the 9-minute mark. Yes, training, because if Squirtle has any chance to defeat Brock with Bubble, we need to be a higher level. So after KOing a bunch of Pidgeys for about 4 minutes, we walked through Viridian Forest, and we did fight some bug catchers in here, and the important thing is you should buy potions and antidotes so you don't black out and waste any time. Especially since in older gens, that poison will kill you. Also, potioning saves a lot more time than just going straight up to a Pokemon Center to heal. At around 19 minutes, we finally make it to Brock's gym, and after defeating his little rookie, very narrowly by the way, we can take on Brock. After I go to the mart since I forgot to buy potions. I told you I'm not a speedrunner. Like a lot of first gyms, they're pretty easy, but Bubble is a 20 base power move, so it doesn't quite knock out Geodude in one shot, and Onix either. But right at 23 minutes, we have obtained our first gym badge. Out of 9 generations. Or 8, not counting Gen 7. Don't worry, I'll be doing those too. Now we can't move away from Gen 1 just yet, as Pokemon Yellow is slightly different, and I guess now is a good time to mention that I obviously won't be playing the other version, which in this case was Pokemon Red, as they are literally the same game and play out the same way. Yellow, however, does play a tad bit different, such as Professor Oak catching Pikachu at the start, adding to our time. Pikachu is our starter this time, which makes this a little harder, and I was like, what are we going to do against Brock? But what speedrunners do is just catch a Nidoran on Route 2, which I had no idea could be caught there. I guess it's just a Pokemon Yellow thing. The good news is Nidoran can't actually be poisoned in Viridian Forest, and we just fight a specific amount of trainers to get enough levels to not have to fight any wild Pokemon. At level 12 and at the 20-minute mark, we can take on Brock, and Nidoran has Double Kick. Another big thing is crits are based on speed in these games, and Nidoran is pretty fast. But Bind also works a different way, which prevents us attacking, adding to our time. After a ton of Leers on Onix, 2 Double Kicks, we beat Brock with a minute lead on the originals. From here we try out the game I spent the most time on as a kid, Pokemon Gold. This one does have a lot of dialogue in the beginning between your mom, the professor, Mr. Pokemon, and more, so I'd assume it's going to take a little bit longer to beat the first gym. We do pick Totodile, and the reason is for the move Rage, which makes the first gym a little bit faster. Most of these runs are using one Pokemon, likely the starters, because catching another Pokemon and training it up, especially in older games, takes a long time. So this is the fastest way to beat the first gym. Our rival fight did take a long time, about a minute and a half to beat, but once that's done, we give the cops a name to that thief, talk to our mom, set off on our journey, and fight a specific amount of trainers again to be right at level 10 for Faulkner. Faulkner has a Pidgey and a Pidgeotto, but they're a lower level here than in the remakes, so level 10 plus Rage is just perfect. Rage is a move that powers up the more we get hit, so instead of doing little damage every turn, it ramps up, making this the most viable option for speedrunning. So we clock in just under 20 minutes by the time we KO Faulkner's second and last bird. Alright, that was a little bit faster than before. I'll take it. By the way, I think Crystal is the same in the beginning, but I could be wrong. Either way, I didn't test it out, so hopefully I am right. Now Gen 3 is a little different since our mom hates us in these games. I mean, does she not care about my safety? This is why we're leaving our house, to be away from here. This is also why dad is never home. This game isn't that much different than the others. We talk to another professor. Actually, we save the professor this time, but we happen to pick our starter while we save him, so that's not too much of a waste of time. And it should be no surprise, Mudkip is the way to go to beat Roxanne. We also fight Brendan, and apparently picking May is the optimal choice in speedruns because Brendan has less dialogue, and this might be true for other games as well. Now the cool thing about Ruby and Sapphire is we were introduced to the running shoes, and it's right away too, so we can immediately start sprinting everywhere. Again, we fight a specific amount of Pokemon to battle the least amount of trainers as possible. This also might be the first game that lets you turn off battle animations, unless you can do that in Gold and Silver. However, I didn't do that. I want to see how long it takes with seeing all the battle animations. Anyways, Mudkip easily clears every trainer and repels in this game are gotten super quick at Petalburg, so that's another big time save. The Wally segment is a little annoying, but we continue on to Petalburg Woods where I made a grave mistake. I accidentally ran into this guy. Sure, I'm not speedrunning, but I am trying to go for a very good time, and this is one of those dweebs where he has 6 useless Pokemon. In this case, Wurmple. Luckily at level 10, Water Gun is a one-shot to all of them. After a minute and a half of straight torture, we take on this Magma Grunt, which actually made me restart the run before, since I blacked out, and I am trying to get a good time. I also haven't been saving or going to Pokemon Center, so it sent me all the way back to my house. I had to restart there. But this time that wasn't an issue, so we truck on, avoiding a spinner, fighting some of Roxanne's help, and we're at level 13, taking on Roxanne's gym at 22 minutes. A little longer than other games, and the time definitely could have been lower if it wasn't for that bug catcher. The gym is a breeze since we have a Mudkip, and water beats rock, so we end up obtaining that gym badge under 24 minutes. Another thing about these runs is using that starter is great since you have the ability Torrent, Overgrow, or Blaze, which will boost our elemental moves. In this case, Water Gun, if our health is at a third or less. This is great because you can avoid them popping their potion if it's a 3-shot, since it would now be a 2-shot if any of those abilities were active. Next up we have Pokemon Emerald, and the beginning plays a little different with Brendan not being in the room when you first walk in. And we managed to avoid that bug catcher, which I don't know if he has 6 Wurmples in Emerald, but better safe than sorry. The only other thing that is different is Roxanne has 3 Pokemon, but the extra one is only a Geodude, and Nosepass is now level 15. But we were level 14. It did take a little longer to KO thanks to that berry it's holding, and a speed drop, and a potion. Anyways, we finished at 29 minutes as opposed to 23 for Ruby and Sapphire. And that's just due to RNG elements such as walking into random Pokemon. And also we trained a little more, which meant a lot more battles, meaning a lot more time. Plus this guy stopped to talk to me. Now probably the definitive way to play Kento is in Fire Red and Leaf Green. Let's see how it fares with its predecessors. I'd assume it takes longer to get to Brock this time around, and I felt like the text was going a lot slower in Fire Red, but I might be wrong. I was pushing through like crazy in this one as I wanted to get a better time than Red and Blue, and we were doing it. I don't know if it's because I messed something up in the originals and rarely messed up anything in Fire Red, or what. We also had to train less in Fire Red. In regular Red, there's a bug catcher with 3 bugs, and in Fire Red, either I didn't fight him or he just had 1 bug, so big time save there. But yeah, we ended up beating Brock 5 minutes earlier than in Red and Blue, and 4 minutes faster than Yellow. Nice. Moving on to the DS games, we start out with Pokemon Pearl, and here's where things start to get a little more slower. The main reason is these games are just straight up slower, and there's a lot more to do before we even get to the first gym, one of which requires straight up leveling up so you can actually beat Roark in a reasonable amount of time. Also, I'm sure there's a certain something you know that goes extremely slow when doing. And on top of all that, the luxury of 60 FPS on the Game Boy is no longer present on the DS games. And this goes pretty much until present day Pokemon. All the games from Diamond and Pearl and onwards run at 30 FPS, which of course lowers how fast we play these games. With all this being said, we took on Pearl, and my first attempt was pretty bad since I didn't know what starter I should run, and I forgot certain things I needed to do. That being said, I ended up restarting to try and get a better time due to me choosing Piplup as my starter. You'd think that'd be the best starter option, but it's not. It evolves at level 16 and is slow just like Turtwig. In fact, I think Turtwig evolves at level 17. Chimchar, however, is the speed demon and he's the strongest. I just completely forgot that he evolved earlier than the rest at level 14. So that's who I chose for my next attempt, and speedrunners actually choose Chimchar for this run. And I'll explain why later. But yeah, anyways. This game is annoyingly slow in the beginning like most modern Pokemon games. We have to talk to our rival, go snoop around the lake, talk to the professor, talk to the professor's assistant, talk to my mom a million times before we even get to Jubilife City, and there's 3 mandatory trainer fights on Route 202. Oh, how I miss when it was 3-digit routes off the rip. It felt like I was progressing through all of these games as a grand journey, through a big region. Anyways, those 3 mandatory battles aren't a huge deal, as either way I need to fight them anyways because we need a ton of experience to evolve into Monferno. Once those are done, we head up to Jubilife to talk to Barry once more to deliver his parcel, and speedrunners here will fight these 2 kids for the move Hidden Power to teach to Chimchar. Why? Because this makes Chimchar defeat Roark as just a Chimchar. With Hidden Power Grass, we get a quad effective move for Onix and Geodude, but Barry chose Piplup, so it massively speeds up that fight as well, and well, you don't have to train all the way to level 14, which is painfully slow. But since you don't know the Hidden Power from the moment you get it, I'd have to reset every time, and like I said, I'm not speedrunning this. Just using some speedrunning tips. If I don't get the best time possible, it's fine, as long as I know I tried. The way that speedrunners know it's HP grass is by using RNG manipulation by changing their clocks on their DS to to a certain date and time before starting a new game. And they also do specific movements like walking back and forth on specific tiles to make the Chimchar be the Chimchar that you want, and this also allows them to basically get 0 encounters for the first few routes. But all this is way too complicated for me, so I just didn't even bother. If you're curious, speedrunning this game, you'd beat Rourke around 24 minutes, and yeah, let's just say since I didn't do that Chimchar trick, we're nowhere near that. Granted, I'm not playing with battle animations off, but still. So anyways, once we beat Barry and fight a whole bunch of trainers all the way up to the Orberg mine, we use an escape rope we found in there to not encounter anything and save time. Once we arrive in Rourke's gym around the 35-minute mark, we finish these 2 remaining trainers, evolve Chimchar into Monferno, get the move Mach Punch, and take on Rourke. I also did teach him the move Rock Smash from the HM. With Monferno on the team, we take neutral hits from rock type moves, but unfortunately I ended up taking too many screeches from Onyx, which one of those was because this is what I left him at, but whatever. And well, Kranidos' headbutt did an insane amount of damage, KOing us in the process. So I could have beaten Rourke around 43 minutes, but I didn't. The good news was I knew this fight was risky, so I saved, soft resetted, and went to go catch him a chop just in case. From there, Monferno crit Geodude with Rock Smash, a Rock Smash lowered Onyx's defense, and our Mach Punch almost KO'd. And from there, Machop came in on a potion, and since he just used Screech, we low-kicked Onyx to death. And Monferno was healthy enough to 2-shot Kranidos. 48 minutes to defeat the first Chim Leader. And remember that first attempt I told you about with Piplup? Yeah, that Chimchar was only a minute faster than that. To be fair, I guess it was supposed to be 6 minutes faster, but still. Now, Platinum has a few key differences, like Barry appearing in your room at the beginning and Cyrus in Lake Verity, which leads to you receiving your starter on Route 201, and also having the first rival battle here. And fun fact, this also takes out the move Hidden Power in the Trainer School, but it adds an X attack there, which is actually important. Also, Looker appears when you enter Jubilee. Other than those things, everything else went the same up until Rourke. Only difference is we use the X attack on Onyx, which allows us to destroy Kranidos in one shot, leaving our time for Platinum at 40 minutes and 25 seconds to beat the first gym. Pretty decent time save, but again, Pearl was supposed to be like 43 minutes. Moving on to my favorite games in the series, due to nothing but nostalgia. I'm curious to see how fast these games play out compared to Gold and Silver. For the most part, this game is pretty similar to the originals in terms of the main path. However, we do have Lyra this time around, which means some extra time is added just from her talking to us, and her Meryl bumping into us because she didn't raise it right. Picking our starter is, I guess, slower due to the animation, and we picked Cyndaquil this time, as in this game, we do indeed need to go through the entirety of Sprout Tower. Oh, and the old man that does the little tutorial thing is avoidable, and it's very slow due to not having running shoes. But running shoes weren't in the originals, so this is actually good. But then Apricorn Man kind of ruins everything by talking to us. Come on, man. Once we beat our rival, we do the catching tutorial and we just make our way to Sprout Tower. This is fairly simple as we just ember every Bellsprout in sight, and I did fight every trainer aside from one to get as much levels as possible for Falkner. The Elder did put us to sleep with Hoot Hoot like always, but from there, we were ready to enter Falkner's gym, and since Pidgeotto is a hard Pokemon to face at this point in the game due to Roost and Sand Attack from Pidgey, I made sure to evolve Cyndaquil to Quilava to guarantee the win. We luckily got a crit Ember against Pidgey, and Pidgeotto got burned, which is amazing as that wraps up the fight right there, clocking in our time at 36 minutes and a half. Pretty much double Gold and Silver, but still not the worst, so I'll take it. Black and White. I remember crying thinking the designs were horrible in these games, but I grew to love them all dearly. Black and White has a way faster text box than previous games, however there's more story to go through. For example, we don't have one rival anymore, we have two, and I wish we could go back to having two rivals because this was a great thing to add. I love how we trash our room in not one, but two Pokemon battles. Look at this place. And Sharon, being the smart one, didn't say, oh hey, let's go outside this time. Anyways, just getting out of the house in this game took us 6 whole minutes. From here, it's just a long thing of story, and there's actually a chance you can lose to N in your first battle with him, and that's exactly what happened to us, wasting a bunch of time. Now, because the first gym in this game is based on which starter you choose, we can't actually use it if we want to do this fast. Instead, speedrunners opt for Lillipup as it gets Bite for flinching, Leer, and Tackle is Stab after all. So when we take on Chili, we immediately start leering to avoid him popping a potion. Then we use Bite as this has a chance to flinch for no damage. We didn't get the flinch, but still worth a try, and now since Tackle is Stab, it KOs from where he's at. As for Pansear, it has the move Incinerate, which is bad as I totally forgot it burns any berries I'm holding. Regardless, we leer one time, tackle, heal up a bunch of times, and eventually get that first shiny gym badge at just 35 minutes. Surprising, to say the least. And it could have been 3 to 5 minutes faster had I not lost to N. But we're not done with Gen 5 just yet, as they have sequels which are very different. This time our hometown is on the left side of the map, and we only have one rival this time, and we choose Tepig for this game. I feel like the amount of story is about the same as Black and White. You get some Alder stuff here, and Hugh with a Plasma Grunt, but there are about 5 trainers before the first gym. And by the 21st minute, we were already in Charon's gym. He does have mandatory trainers, but it's fine as we needed to be level 12 for Charon. Well, kind of. My Tepig sucks, so level 12 actually made me black out, making me waste time to losing a fight once again. Luckily I did save, so one soft reset later and Patrat goes down. But then Lilliput was on the field, and, well, it crit. Oh, come on, man, that was like 4 minutes wasted. Third time was in fact the charm though, as he didn't crit and we had an Oranberry. Plus, on our third Ember, we were in Blaze territory. We both healed at the same time, but there was one turn where he worked up, and this allowed us to outdamage him, winning us our first gym badge at 31 minutes. That definitely could have been like a 27-minute run, but whatever. Even a wild Pokemon could have had me at level 13 before entering that fight. Gen 6 is where it starts to get a little bad, as 3D animation just naturally makes the game go slower, mainly due to battling. Although in this game, we don't have to battle too many trainers, it's more so about this 5-minute thing before we can even leave Sandalune Forest. Yeah, shiny hunting for the starters in this game is brutal because of the amount of crap you have to listen to before choosing him. Speaking of which, Fennekin is the best choice we have as a starter if we want to beat Viola fast enough. Just kidding. I'm actually going to be using the speedrun method, seeing as Viola has a Surge Kit with Bubble. And this is by just catching a Bunnelby and trading it for a Farfetch'd in an in-game trade in Sandalune City. This is great as we don't even have to really fight any trainers and take on Viola right away. This Farfetch has the move Aerial Ace, which one-shots Surge Kit and two-shots Vivian if it didn't go for Harden. But still, we managed to live on 10 HP, securing our first gym badge in just 21 minutes and 20 seconds. Okay, I wasn't really expecting it to be that fast, but to be fair, the trek to the second gym in this game is a long one, so that's probably why. Now the remakes for Gen 3 are up next, and again, cinematics are not our best friend here, as the whole intro until getting out of the moving truck is 2 minutes as opposed to just 1 minute. And we also lose a minute when we fight our rival, as in the previous games, we did it around 4 minutes faster. So that's 5 total minutes lost. Nothing much changes between the remakes, except minor things like Brendan showing you sneaking for dex naving, and even this little scene with the Beautiflies. Oh, and Zinnia and entering Petalburg as well. Roxanne is relatively the same, only that Geodude takes an extra turn to knock out thanks to Sturdy working differently from Gen 5 and onward, and she potioned. Still, with some potions and some water, plus Torrent, we obtained our first gym badge once more at 28 minutes. This is 4.5 minutes slower than Ruby and actually a minute faster to Emerald to my surprise. None of these though compared to the hellhole that was coming up next, Generation 7. Gen 7 is known for having the worst start to any Pokemon game to date. The tutorial portion is extremely long and you just sit on this first island wondering when the fuck everyone is gonna shut their damn mouths so you can continue with your journey. And the cinematics add so much more time to do this even before you start the game. By the end of this and the sequels, I wanted to pass out. I was over it. Sun and Moon just hits you with so many things like Akui not shutting up, How not shutting up, Hala not shutting up, and the worst of them all, Lily not shutting the fuck up. You take one breath after some dialogue, walk a little bit, and you can't breathe again. We were getting our starter around the 15-minute mark. That's insane. And to make matters worse, I hate playing through these games again and again, and I chose the wrong starter. I was playing Sun since Moon is faster if you pick Poplio, and you might be thinking, why? These games don't even have gyms, and while that might be true, trials are essentially the replacement for gyms in these games, so I just added them. So in this case, it's the normal Z Crystal, not the first gym badge. Now I'm not going to bore you with these games, but on top of everyone talking to you 24/7, we also had a ton of trainers to fight in the trainer school, as well as in Howoli City with Skull Grunts and Lima. And everything was going great until Alima himself. I just wasn't leveled enough, and his Smeargle destroyed Rowlet multiple times. And I forgot you could just buy X items in the Pokemart right off the bat. So I tried this around 3 times and ended up losing like 13 whole minutes. 13! And we still had more trainers to fight after that. 4 whole trainers to be exact. We got to Alima's trial at 1 hour and 27 minutes. Jesus. And we still had to fight every Yungoos, take on Team Skull once again, and take on the Totem for our Z Crystal. Thankfully, I was level 15 by the time I fought the Totem, and we had a couple things helping us out, such as potions, the workup TM, and X speeds. We also didn't flinch from Bite, and finally Razor Leaf hits both Pokemon on the field. Gumshoos was finally defeated around an hour and 40 minutes, just under 2 hours to beat the first trial. What were they thinking? It's the first important thing you need to do, and we spent more time talking than anything else. Ultra Moon's beginning is a little bit different, obtaining our starter right behind our house in this grass. This was at the 8-minute mark as opposed to the 15. We did choose Popplio since he's the speedrunner for this game, and things were going smooth until I got to the trainer school. If you know anything about these games, you know the Ultra games are a lot more difficult, even having trainers with full-on EVs on their Pokemon. So our first stump was this teacher, and I realized speedrunners actually catch Zora because it knows fake tears, which harshly lowers her Pokemon special defense. And by the way, she has the starter who's super effective against yours. Great. But yeah, you would just catch Zorua and do your thing, and you would think, okay, I lost a little bit of time by losing and catching him, but no. I lost way more than that because I still had to level him up to level 10 for fake tears. And I already fought all the kids in the trainer school, which would automatically level him up for me with the experience share. So I had to train him myself with wild Pokemon, because I was not going to restart either of these games to get a better time. There was just no way. It had already been close to an hour. Anyways, once all that was set and done, Zorua lowers Rowlet's special defense, takes one for the team, and Popplio water guns Rowlet for just about half of his health, and another one just barely KOs her, finally. Oh, but that wasn't it. If Alima was giving me trouble in the first game, of course he was gonna give me trouble in the second. I even bought X items this time, but I just forgot I needed to up my special attack to be able to knock out Smeargle in one shot, and this is because Yungoos will leer you to the point of Smeargle just KOing you in one shot. Why? Well, because they gave him coverage to whatever starter you choose. Anyways, this wasted about 6 minutes. From here, there's this little portion that isn't in the main game, and it adds another skull fight, and then we just do the trial the same way, except the totem this time is Raticate. With the right starter Popplio, this is fairly easy. With 1x speed and some X special attacks, and the fact that Disarming Voice hits both targets on the field, this was very simple, knocking out Rattata in one shot, and Raticate in 2 after healing, of course. With that, it was an hour and 40 when we finally defeated it. The exact same as the regular games. This is some bull. Thankfully, they learned their lesson with Sword and Shield with the whole story thing. Well, sort of. This game has very little story. So yeah, they didn't meet in the middle. They did a full 180. Kind of like in Gen 5 when they had all those Pokemon. And then in Gen 6, we had way less Pokemon. Anyways, the gym is ways away, but still anything is better than what I just dealt with. I mean, I didn't even get a gym badge. It was a crystal. Sword and Shield is a little annoying since you have to backtrack after heading to Wedgehurst, and then we finally get our starter at 8 minutes. Not too bad. It's around the same as Ultra Moon. Scorbunny is definitely the play here for Milo's grass types, but there's still a lot to do before Milo, like the 2 hot fights early on, and the fact that I need a lot of levels since Bede has 3 Pokemon. Although, I guess looking back, maybe I could have just caught something in the wild area for an easier time with him. I did just go straight to Motostoke, where there is a lot of cutscenes, and this fight with Team Yell lasted a really long time for some reason. 6 minutes and a half to be exact. The speedrun for these games actually go find a crocodile in the Crown Tundra to just sweep everything, and to be honest, maybe I should have just did that. I didn't really know how I was going to beat Bede, but then Scorbunny evolved, and I was like, oh crap, I forgot the first gym is like level 20. I lost track of my levels. Anyways, this still didn't let us win our first attempt, as Ember wasn't doing anything to beat psychic types, and they all had one very annoying thing: confusion. Oddly enough, this isn't what ended up messing up Reboot, as he kept breaking through confusion 3 turns in a row. It was more so by the time I got to Hatena, I ran out of potions, and not even my Blaze could save me. Luckily, I did save before this fight, and instead of going to catch some help, I decided to just look around for some items, and there were actually some super potions nearby. Wish I knew that before. With that, Bede was defeated around an hour and 27 seconds. For reference, we started fighting Bede 11 minutes ago. Huh, looks like Milo doesn't know how to raise Pokemon either. Are you perhaps the brother of Lyra? Now, I thought I could just avoid every trainer in Milo's gym, but this guy was mandatory, and I also ended up messing up the Wooloos, so there was time lost there. Milo, however, is pretty easy, but I forgot that Dynamaxing only lasts 3 turns, and I did it way too early. This almost made me die, but somehow I was able to pull through, getting Milo's badge at an hour and 42 minutes. I cannot believe this is on par with the Gen 7 games, but it is a long road to that first gym. Like, you have to walk a lot just to get there, so it's kind of understandable. Versus Ultra Sun and Moon, it's not that that far of a walk. There's just a lot going on. Yeah, I'm just gonna pretend this game doesn't exist. And now we're on to the latest installment of the franchise, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. This game actually surprised me. While yes, it's still long to get to Katy, it's way better than I thought. This game does have a good amount of dialogue and cutscenes, however the battles are very limited as you don't have to fight any random trainers, saving us a ton of time. The school portion is the longest part of this whole thing, and right before it, you don't even have to win the Nemona fight as you won't black out. From there, you do 2 battles with Team Star, and that's it. Just button mash your way through the school segment. I know it's a lot, but you'll pull through, and after going through Gen 7 and 8, trust me, we're already closer to the first gym than the other 2 games were at this time. Now, I did choose Suicune for Katy's bug types, but I actually did use a speedrun strat. Basically, due to you getting your ride legendary right away, you can do this glitch that lets you jump backwards, and this lets you go into South Province Area 5 by flying back to Los Platos. Why did I say it that way? I speak Spanish. It's Los Platos. Anyways, then we just follow this path, and on the way up, there's actually a hidden quick ball, and in this game, you can go anywhere on the map, and you won't be restricted to a linear path, so we can actually go catch the perfect Pokemon for Katy's bug types. Flamigo, who's at level 17, so I don't have to do any training to completely demolish the first gym. So we just throw our quick ball, catch it, and we're on our way to the first town. Now all we have to do is this little game with an olive, and Flamigo doesn't even need to terastallize to one-shot every one of her Pokemon. It really is that simple. And we end up getting our first and final gym badge at 1 hour and 12 minutes. That is way better than I thought it would be, and I'm pretty sure the world record beats Katy in under 1 hour. So yeah, that's how fast it is to beat the first gym in every single Pokemon game. Here's them in order, from shortest time to longest. We could have had some better times, but yeah, do what you want with this list.